I'm a professor in the English department at the University of Alberta. And what I want to do is a couple things. We're at a pivotal moment today, right? Occupy 1 is done. Occupy 2 is underway, right? Yeah. So I want to say a couple of more thank yous to the people who were so important to Occupy 1. And then I want to say a couple of things about what I hope we'll accomplish with Occupy 2. And because I'm mostly a writer rather than a public speaker, I'm gonna read, right? Okay, just to make sure I don't leave out anything too, right? So the first people we need to thank are the campers, right? They were the core of Occupy 1, right? We could not have achieved what that camp achieved in terms of symbolics for Occupy Edmonton as a manifestation of a global movement without them, right? Let us thank every person who spent even one night sleeping at that square. And let us give a special thank you to those dedicated campers who stuck it out night after night, especially those campers who stuck it out to the very end, right? Yeah. And let's thank the donors, right? The press may not know who you are. Even people standing here today may not know who all of the donors are or were, right? But to each and every person, each and every donor who gave a donation, no matter how large or how small it was, let's give them a heartfelt thank you, right? We thank you for your donations of wood, water, clothing, bedding, money, time, energy, and spirit. And we thank especially those people who served as our legal observers on eviction nights, right? Please join me in thanking all of our donors and all of our legal observers. Of course, we also have to thank Occupy Wall Street, right? At a crucial moment, right? When the need to winterize was looming ahead of us, right? We weren't quite sure how we were going to pull it off, right? How we're actually going to do this. They came through with crucial monetary support in the form of $7,500 for the winterizing of the camp, right? I assure you the equipment that they bought us will be put to good use, even though it's currently packed away, right? So thank you, Occupy Wall Street. Right? Let's also thank our key spokespeople. Every protest movement, even a leaderless one, depends vitally on spokespeople. People who are prepared to put themselves on the line in a special way in front of the media, standing at a microphone, to speak on our behalves. It's never easy speaking for a group, especially a group like this, which is contributing to a momentous moment in history by trying to be a part of a global movement, right? So let's thank our core spokespeople. Thank you, Mike Kadima. Thank you, Chelsea Fluke. Thank you, Mohad Mohammed. Thank you, Amy Bursey. Thank you all our spokespeople. Now, a lot of people feel that we ought to be thanking Melcor for letting us stay at the square at 102nd Street and Jasper Avenue. Now, if others want to do that, go ahead. The person I think we ought to be thanking in regard to the fact that Melcor let us stay at the square for 42 nights and a little part for 43rd is Rob Butts. Rob Butts was on the front line there as a key bottom liner, writing letter after letter to Melcor and dealing with their CEO, Ralph Young. Rob Butts spent a lot of time on the phone with Melcor representatives. Rob Butts spent a lot of time keeping up to date on every little development of the camp so he could faithfully represent us to Melcor. So let's thank Rob for his huge contribution to Occupy 1. Right. And of course, we also have to thank our dedicated crew of marshals, right? I don't think I've met all of the marshals, but I have met a few of them and had the opportunity to have some wonderful conversations with them. So I'll name a few, and I know I'm not capturing everybody. Thank you, Kirk Hansen. Thank you, David Lang. Thank you, Mo Mohammed. Thank you, Alexander. Thank you, Bryn. Thank you to all of the other marshals who helped create a wonderful, calm energy at the square, right? With their dedicated long shifts, day after day, night after night, to make sure that someone was always on the spot and awake at night to take care of any camp emergencies. And that, their job included with, and I've seen this many times, the aggression that was directed at the camp by many who walked by or wandered into the square. So thank you to our marshals. And I think we could also thank those journalists, it's not all of them, right, who reported on what we were doing without judging us, right? Who made a good faith best effort to do their jobs. And let's hope that as we go into Occupy 2, more journalists will rise to that task. And then could we maybe thank the police, not all of them necessarily, but at least those who actually, when they came by the camp, would treat us as what we were while we were there, which was an auxiliary peace force, right? There were some members of the police who acted that way, so we could thank them too. I see the enthusiasm has died down a little. All right, and finally, we've made this thank you already, but I think it's worth repeating. Thank you to the 3 people who got arrested on our behalf in the early hours of Friday morning. Chris Dunn, Josh Seaweed, and Bill Thomas, right? Now, I know there's some feeling in the press and the wider community that the fewer people there were at camp and the fewer people who were arrestable, the less seriously they have to take this movement. But that's not how I see it at all, right? The fewer people who endured through thick and thin and the 3 who permitted themselves to be arrested are a special few amongst us, special few amongst what Shakespeare would famously call a happy few, a band of brothers, right? And they stood up for us. They did something very special that night. So thank you to the special 3 who got arrested for this band of brothers and sisters. Okay, now, those thanks were not exhaustive. They couldn't be. I haven't met everybody, right? But that's the nature of the movement, right? And at this moment, as we shift into Occupy 2, we have now to be focusing on bringing more people in, right? Getting more to join us. And so ultimately what I'd like to do is issue an invitation today, right? And it's an invitation I'm sure you all want articulated, so really I'm just articulated on your behalf, right? We want people to come join us. If for some reason Occupy 1 made you nervous, well, there's no reason that Occupy 2 should, because Occupy 2 is going to focus fundamentally on the sharing of ideas, right? We're going to reject this whole notion that our demands are comical, and we're going to do it by bringing people in to contribute their ideas, right? And we're going to be doing that in more and more powerful General Assemblies, I hope. And as we do that, I hope we can find ways to come together and reject the idea that what we stand for is, quote unquote, too utopian, right? So Stefan and Brad have already talked about that a little bit. Can you indulge me just for 2 minutes as a professor to just talk to you a little bit about Thomas More's Utopia, right? The book from which this phrase is coming, right? Book about, this is a 16th century book about an island in a far-flung location outside Europe where the people had organized themselves to hold all of their wealth in common. So they would bring in the harvest together, and they would eat their meals together, and they would party together, and they would wear humble garments and reject gold, and I could go into a lot more details. But the important thing about utopia, of course, is that the word means that it is nowhere or no place, right? But the person, the character who's passionately defending it in utopia, who has the name of an angel, right, Raphael Hippolyte, was doing so because he wanted Europe to take utopia, that fictional place that is nowhere, as a model for a system which in the 16th century, and according to Thomas More's book, allowed sheep to devour men. And what Hippolyte was referring to was the enclosure of land by feudal landlords who were increasingly using the land to feed sheep for wool production rather than using it to grow crops that would feed people, right? And that was part of what is known as the first enclosure movement. And it was fought in the 16th century by rebellion after rebellion, in which the people fought for another relationship to the land and the Commonwealth and to one another, right? Which of course would have to reject what the feudal landlords were doing. That is what we are still doing now, right? So if you have any kind of historical perspective, what we are fighting is a far more subtle and sophisticated enclosure movement. And what, in my view, what Occupy does is it lets us, a few or very few, fight another few or very few. But at this moment, as I'm saying, we need that few to grow, right? Because we are fighting, the few of us who are still here, who are here right now, right, to get others to join us so that when we all live a beautiful life with the wealth that was stolen from the rest of us. And I could go on, but let me let me get to the upshot, right? I really do think what we're fighting for is a is the possibility for life to be equally beautiful for all. It shouldn't matter what family you were born into. It shouldn't matter what socioeconomic circumstances you were born into, right? We should be creating culture in which we care equally for all. And of course, the demand that was on our list of comical demands that is most important to me as a professor is the demand for a free post-secondary education for all. All right, so I'm going to stop reading because now I know exactly what I want to say, right?
Where do you work? Where are you a professor?
Pardon me?
Where are you a professor?
Right across the river there, the University of
U of A.
Alberta. That's right. Right? And so what the university ought to be is the place of ideas, the place of dreamers and thinkers. But the university, as much as anywhere else, is a place of corporatization, right? And so what is happening is, especially to those of us who work in the arts and humanities or who are students or in the arts and humanities, we're being told that ideas are not profitable. Ideas, and those who want to think them and know things that have been thought in the past, things that have been thought by other cultures, critical thought about the ways we've been, creative thought about what we might be, those ideas just can't be funded, right? So one of the things I'm hoping we can do in Occupy 2 is rally around this notion that ideas are the most precious thing of all, right? Especially to a movement of idealists, right? So Mike at the press conference earlier this week, stood up and said, yeah, some people accuse us of being idealists. Are we idealists? Yes, we are, right? And I think what we need to do is rally around that idea at this moment, that we are idealists. We want more people to be idealists. We want to rally around the idea that it is possible for us to make a beautiful world. We just have to commit to that we're all going to work towards it together, and then we're going to work towards it in this really special way with this direct democracy movement, which allows us to come together. Anyone who wants to can join it in a General Assembly. Anyone who wants to can bring forward an idea at a General Assembly upon which they would like us as a group to act. We are a force for action, right? And so let's act around ideas for Occupy 2, and let's begin that today with a General Assembly at the university, the place of ideas, rallying around our idea, which is that we can make a better world and we won't be told that we are too utopian.